Hello everyone, I'm Zarathustra and today I'm bringing you my review of Steins Reboot, which I originally wrote for UK Anime Network, where I regularly cover deep dive articles, reviews and analysis on anime, manga and video games. In this video, I want to read you the first part of my article to break down whether this second remake of Mage's legendary visual novel lives up to the hype. Naturally, I invite you to read the full article on the site if you'd like to dive deeper into the topic and explore all my points in detail. But that's not all. One of the most fiercely debated topics surrounding Reboot within the fanbase is its revised text and script streamlining. To give you a clear, objective look at how much has actually changed, and to help anyone picking up Steins Reboot to experience its narrative world for the very first time, we'll be looking at an on-screen text comparison between the original 2009 Steins 2018 Steins Elite, and 2026 Steins Reboot. By the end of this video, you'll have a complete picture of where this remake stands and which version of Akihabara's time travel saga is right for you. Let's start from the beginning. Following delays and several controversial brand-related announcements, Steins Reboot finally arrives toward the end of 2026. It stands as the second remake of the acclaimed visual novel Steins originally released in Japan for the Xbox 360 back in 2009. The success achieved by Steins is undeniably monumental. Although conceived as the second entry in an anthology of visual novels under the science adventure umbrella by the creative collective Mages, none of the stories told before or since have managed to strike a chord with players quite like the one starring Okabe Rintaro. Indeed, the events recounted in Steins seamlessly span multiple genres, moving gracefully from slice-of-life comedy to sci-fi mystery and from conspiracy thriller to romantic tragedy without a single seam or compromise. It offers a welcoming space for anyone willing to be intrigued by the lively personality of its iconic cast. Set in a vibrant, bustling Tokyo, specifically in the electronic district of Akihabara, Okabe Rintaro is a Japanese college student who, during the summer of 2009, lives through a series of events bordering on the absurd and the grotesque. A self-proclaimed mad scientist, Okabe has recently opened a future gadget lab. Joining him in his bizarre activities are his childhood friend Mayuri, an anime and cosplay enthusiast, and Itaru, an avid eroge player and extraordinarily talented hacker. The three spend their days driven by the protagonist's eccentric roleplay, having fun inventing all kinds of contraptions to find unorthodox solutions to common problems. The story opens when Okabe, accompanied by Mayuri, decides to attend a press event at the Akihabara Radio Kaikan, one of the district's most famous landmarks. At the event, a well-known local scientist is scheduled to lecture on the scientific feasibility of time travel, a topic near and dear to the protagonist, who is a passionate fan of wild science fiction. The public presentation is first disrupted by the appearance of a mysterious satellite-like object on the building's roof, and then by Okabe himself, who, fired up by the scholar's talk, launches into a series of direct critiques against his theories. The arrival of a younger researcher, Makise Kurisu, restores order, allowing the event to proceed, while the protagonist is escorted out of the hall. It is only when the two speak alone in the hallways that Okabe realizes he is standing before a world-renowned researcher whose papers have been published in top-tier scientific journals despite her very young age. Embarrassed, he can do little more than leave her behind and rejoin his childhood friend who had tagged along for company. A moment of peaceful lightheartedness in front of a gashapon machine is suddenly shattered by a blood-curdling scream from the upper floors. The young man rushes up the stairs to check what is happening, only to come face to face with a gruesome scene. Makise Kurisu, the researcher he had met just moments prior, lies in a pool of blood that spreads out before his petrified silhouette. Overcome with panic, Okabe leaves the building without telling Mayuri what he just saw, instead trying to message his hacker friend Itaru about the horrific discovery. He types out a text on his flip phone, but immediately after pressing send, the street ahead of him empties of all the people who were crowding it just moments ago. Turning his gaze toward the building he had just exited, he realizes that the satellite-like machine is now embedded directly inside it, as if it had crashed from above and reduced the structure facade to rubble. An entirely inexplicable mystery, yet it is merely the tip of the iceberg of events that makes up Steins Gate's intricate narrative. Penned by Chiyomaru Shikura, at the time already the creator of a shocking horror sci-fi novel Cow's Head, the work is in every respect a gripping sci-fi tale that blends real-world scientific theories with mid-2000s otaku's culture references. This mix of themes creates an explosive recipe for anyone who enjoys either genre, offering a perfect snapshot of the nerd subculture in which Itaru, Okabe, and the other members of the Future Gadget Lab operate. Beyond the pop culture references and the lingo used by the characters, drawn directly from 2chan message boards, Steins Gate remains to this day a poignant and complex story. At its absolute peaks, it hits hard with its poetic tone and the visceral, raw emotion written into its exceptional script. The dramatic structure follows a masterclass 3-act format. The first act introduces all the main faces, characterizing them through everyday banter and establishing their identities and roles in the story without relying on heavy-handed exposition. The slice-of-life component allows players to immerse themselves fully in the almost goofy atmosphere of the early game, giving them time to get attached to every introduced character. Scattered through Okabe and his friends' quiet daily lives, however, are clues and red herrings that heighten intrigue around the central mystery. Sending text messages into the past sounds absurd, but if ordinary people like these characters actually had that ability, what kind of experiments would they run? Many critics have long called the first portion of Steins Gate overly tedious. The events do move slowly, but it is a deliberate choice that gives players space to familiarize themselves with its narrative world. Between real-world scientific and physical concepts introduced to lend realism to the scenarios, and the simple daily interactions shaping its vibrant cast, the adventure gradually begins to give Okabe's absurd conspiracy theories a sense of mounting gravity. All this unfolds without neglecting the cast's emotional dimension. The more time spent in the company, the more tangible and detailed the bonds between them become. Subtle, yet entirely intentional, Steins Gate's narrative design naturally invites players to feel like part of his friend group. Personally, I've never agreed with detractors of the story's early pacing, and years later, my opinion remains unchanged. By the time you reach the midpoint, when control slips out of a character's hands, the plot twists and dramatic development would simply lack impact without that careful, painstaking build-up. It is precisely because of that setup that Okabe's sole objective, shared completely by the player, becomes restoring everything back to how it was. Steins Gate Reboot is a remake faithful to the mechanical design of the original 2009 visual novel. It presents itself as a kinetic novel, a linear story featuring no standard dialogue choices, branching paths, or on-screen prompt boxes. In truth, player interaction is possible, but in a unique way, entirely through the protagonist's mobile phone. Choices are not shown in a menu as options, but everything is conveyed through action. In a completely diegetic way that fits the narrative, players can influence the story's direction or deepen relationships with characters by using the phone, which can be pulled up whenever Okabe is in a position to use it. Actions like replying to received messages by highlighting key phrases, ignoring calls, choosing whether to answer or actively opting to use or avoid using the phone when the narrative prompts it, directly impact the gameplay experience. The protagonist's phone stands out as a prominent iconic and thematic element, but it is also the primary mechanism for the player agency. It is certainly an elegant and unconventional solution, especially by the standards of the era, yet one that retains an inherent ambiguity. Exploring all available possibilities feel far more nuanced than navigating simple binary on-screen choices. For instance, players must reply in specific ways to a series of messages spread across multiple chapters to unlock new scenarios or collectibles like phone wallpapers. Unlike the previous remake, Steins Lead, where player agency was restricted to key moments where protagonist automatically pulled out his phone, Reboot opts to grant full control back to the player, just like the original release. This return to form proves the enduring effectiveness of that original system. That freedom of action is now supported by an observer mode, allowing players to pull up and inspect a detailed flowchart mapping out the narrative paths at any given moment. Of course, this is only a first overview of my thoughts, and if you'd like to read my complete in-depth written review, you can find the full article over at UK Anime Network. The link is right down in the description box below. Now, I'll leave you with a side-by-side text comparison of the three scripts, as mentioned at the beginning of the video. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this comparison. Are you picking up Reboot, or do you still prefer the classic 2009 release? Let me know in the comments. And if you enjoyed this video and want to see more visual novel analysis, retro game deep dives, and comparisons, please consider dropping a like and subscribing to the channel. Thank you so much for watching, and see you in the next Worldline.